Today in the kitchen, we're going to be making one of my all-time favorites. If you haven't figured it out yet, we're going to be making my favorite food, the world's favorite pastry, the donut. In this simple recipe, it calls for 3 different ingredients. The ingredients include a half a cup of the history and origin, 3 tablespoons of the types of donuts, and a teaspoon of the regional variations. First, let's roll into the history and origin. The first traces of the modern donut trace back to the 19th century, where a ship captain's mother who went by the name of Elizabeth Gregory mastered the deep fryer. According to the Smithsonian, she added a variety of spices, which included cinnamon, nutmeg, and lemon rind. She believed the spice pastry could cure a common C-related disease of scurvy. Now, while Elizabeth can't claim credit for creating the donut, her son Hanson is to be believed the mind behind the hole in the middle. There are a couple different theories that come with this mystery. The lesser-known theory is that it came to him in a dream sent by an angel, and the more popular theory is that when embarking on sea, he often faced bad storms which required 2 hands for steering. Instead of throwing his donut overboard, he shoved it on a peg of his steering wheel, which caused the hole in the middle when he took it off. Now, flashing forward to the 1920s, one man, Adolf Levitt, revolutionized the market of donuts by creating the first donut machine. Originating in New York City, the donut machine allowed for efficiency in producing donuts, causing their popularity to spread nationwide. 10 years later, and half a country away in New Orleans, the famous franchise Krispy Kreme started its journey. Its official website explains its timeline. It all started with a man named Joe Lebeau, who was a French baker and made the secret recipe to these delicious donuts. With the Great Depression putting financial pressure on many citizens of the U.S., he was forced to move to Kentucky, where he sold his secret recipe and the Krispy Kreme name to a man named Ishmael Armstrong and his nephew, Vernon Rudolph. Krispy Kreme started off as a door-to-door business where Vernon would personally sell and deliver the treats before they moved up in the world and started selling to local grocery stores in Tennessee. Krispy Kreme opened its first store in Salem, North Carolina on July 13, 1937. Since then, it has become one of the most popular donut franchises in multiple countries, including the US, Canada, and the UK. Now let's mix in the different types of donuts. The Huffington Post says that there are generally 2 makeups or recipes of donuts, which include the cake and the yeast donut. The cake donut is made with a sweet dough and baking powder, which is then fried, and it gives it a crunchier outside with a cake-like interior. The next is the yeast donut, which is what you'll see at Krispy Kreme. It is made with a yeast dough, which is then cut out into the donut shape and then fried to a golden color. Different to the cake donut, a yeast donut is light and airy all the way through and has a slight yeast flavor. Now let's look at the different shapes of donuts. Now there are a lot of shapes, but these are the most common. The first one is the ring donut, which is the one you see the most. Next is a little bit different and are called donut holes. They're basically just little spheres of donuts and are made the same way and can be filled with fruit, jams, anything. Next is the classic filled donut. Classic filled donuts have the original shape of the donut without the hole in the middle and are filled with fruit fillings, jams, and even creams. Next is the fritter, which has a unique shape because it doesn't really have a shape at all. It is basically just thrown around the filling in the middle. Next is the long john, which is a long rectangular shape of donut and is filled with cream. And lastly is the twist or cruller, which is basically a twisted or braided piece of dough. Now let's look at donuts around the world. The countries we'll look at include South Africa, Italy, Germany, France, Mexico, and China. In South Africa, they call their donuts cook sisters and are braided pieces of dough infused with sugar or honey. In Italy, they call them bombolonies, which are basically a mix between a cream puff and a filled donut. In Germany, they call them Berliners and is basically a filled cake donut. In France, they are beignets, which is a square pastry and can be filled and paired with a chocolate sauce. In Mexico, you may know this one as the churro. It is a deep fried piece of dough, which is then coated in cinnamon and sugar. And lastly is China's yushao. It is similar to the churro, but isn't as decorated in sugar and unhealthy stuff. Now that we have all the ingredients, let's go back and make sure we didn't forget any. The first ingredient we added was the history and origin, where we saw the start of the donut and the start of the famous franchise Krispy Kreme. Next, we saw the different types of donuts, which included the cake and yeast and many shapes. And lastly, we looked at the regional variations from countries around the world. Now that you have all the ingredients and all this knowledge, I hope you have a better understanding of donuts and do not hesitate the next time you have a chance to try one of these delicious treats.